Hello everybody and welcome back to Mining Modern. I'm Corbin Hosler, as always with Cool Stuff Inc. And this week we are taking Mono Red Prowess for a spin. So this looks like a Mining Modern deck, right? It has Kiln Fiend in it, but as it turns out, this deck is actually, I think, pretty decent right now. It's gone through a lot of different iterations, but mono red, small creatures, lots of triggers, prowess, ending in Bedlam Reveler. This is a legitimate deck in Modern right now. This is basically pushing it as far as you can go to the aggressive spectrum, to the point where it's almost like a combo deck more than an aggro deck. So how's it work? Well, there's not very many creatures, but the ones that we have are good. Monastery Swiftspear, of course, haste and prowess for 1-drop. Soul-Scar Mage with prowess as well for a 1-drop, along with irrelevant ability sometimes. A couple Kiln Fiends, this is the fun one. When you cast an instant or sorcery, gets +3 until end of turn. This thing just one-shots people. And of course, once you fill up your Graveyard, Bedlam Reveler to reload. So what spells do we have to make that happen? Lots of free ones. Manamorphose, of course, works as a free spell. Lava Dart basically works as a free spell as well when you get to sacrifice a mountain to flash it back, dealing 1 damage to any target. Crash Through, give your creatures trample until end of turn, and you draw a card. Look, it's all about just getting in damage with those early creatures. Burst Lightning and Lightning Bolt and Lava Spike for the burn. Light of Sage, refill the hand, a couple cycle lands. That's it. It is straightforward mono red prowess. Attack your opponents down to nothing as quick as possible. And look, this is how extreme Modern is these days, but you know what? It works. So onto the sideboard here. Fairly straightforward. We got the Blood Moons for Tron, Abrade where you want them, Grafdigger's Cage the same, Alpine Moon for the lands. Just Leyline of the Voids we casually can't cast. Have to open on one here in our opener if we want to actually have it in play. But that's kind of what you need against the graveyard decks of today, especially in a deck like this. And of course, Dragon's Claw if we play against Burn or the Mirror. So everybody, that is it. Mono Red Prowess here on Mining Modern. I'm Corbin Hosler. Let's get to the games. All right, everybody, here we go with the games. I'm Corbin Hosler on Mono Red Prowess against our opponent, leading on Island Serum Vision. So look, we're keeping one land, and that land does us damage, but I believe this is how this deck's supposed to work. It turns out 5 of the 6 spells we have in our hand are in fact castable off of just this one land. So second Bedlam Reveler there, absolutely not what we wanted, but I think this is pretty much the risk you take when you play the deck. So with that said, on our next turn here, depending on what our opponent does, we get a Crash Through to draw a card, try to find a land, or we could just go for the attack and then a light at this stage. It'd feel a lot better if we were on the play, especially as now we've been lightning bolted here. Let's see if we can dig up a land. All right, we did not, so we're going to Crash Through here, and we still did not get there. So not ideal, but not the worst, honestly. If we do hit a land on our next turn, we have a Swiftspear plus additional spells. So I think we have another turn to try to draw out of this one here. Our opponent is going to Snapcast a Serum Visions back here. Well, let's see if we can dig up a mountain. That would be nice. My opponent just trying to set up here. I guess that's probably good for us. We only have so many creatures, right? I certainly would rather them snap back a Serum Visions than snap back a Lightning Bolt. But that does probably mean their hand is pretty stacked. All right, look at that. We hit the mountain. So that's step 1 here. Play the Swiftspear out. I think we definitely get in there with this. See what our opponent wants to do. No blocks. That's what I thought. I actually want to light up the stage here. Go ahead and cast it with Spectacle. Get this in while we can. And see what we found. We found a Crash Through and another light up the stage. So that's pretty decent. If our opponent has removal, it looks a little worse. But we can also, if we really want to, do something like Lightning Bolt them, then light up the stage. You get 2 cards. If one of those is a land, we could even cycle the Crash Through. So as our opponent going on the beatdown here, and they're going to Mystic Sanctuary back a Lightning Bolt to the top of their deck. Well, that is certainly a legal play in Modern these days. Looks like this is going to work out okay for us, though. We can go ahead and just start off by crashing through here, triggering Prowess. I guess just go for the attack. I feel like I need to amass resources right now. And we'll light up the stage with Spectacle here. Hitting... Alright, there we go. Hitting some lands. That's what we wanted to see. So now we get to play this out. We can pass the turn. We have a land drop for next turn with the Fiery... Oh, my opponent's playing turns. I see. Okay. I didn't really know exactly what we're up against, and our opponent does, of course, now have a Lightning Bolt in their hand. They're playing Dictate of Crufix, huh? So they are an extra turns deck over there. We're also pretty close to our Bedlam Revelers. Not that I necessarily want to be, but that is a thing. The good thing is we have mana now, as our opponent Mystic Sanctuary's back Lightning Bolt again. Oh, they haven't done it either time, have they? Okay. I was actually a little confused there as we get time warped here. My opponent wasn't choosing to put them... They have to target it something, but it looks like they didn't actually choose to put it back. So that's... I mean, that's probably honestly even worse for us, because that means they're over there trying to combo off rather than control our board. So not the biggest fan of that one, not going to lie. I mean, if we start piecing the burn together in our hand, I mean, we have 9 points... Sorry, 9 points of burn there with the spike and the 2 bolts. So I could spike on the... Or bolt on the end of turn, untap, bolt, spike, attack for 3. Okay. See if our opponent has more turns lined up here. I have to assume that we're dead. As our opponent now exhaustions us, so that's not ideal. There's a Kiln Fiend. We'll draw the extra card here. Get a Lava Dart. Alright, here's what I'm thinking. Play the Kiln Fiend. Discard the Lava Dart to clean up. That means we can flash it back here by sacrificing a Mountain to kill that Snapcaster should we need to. That would certainly be ideal, as it would allow us to... Hopefully, I'm playing this to try to get another turn and get in there with Kiln Fiend. That's really the plan here. To try to just kind of seal the game in one big attack step. It is... I say, it's possible I should have fired off the Lightning Bolt on my opponent's instep just to... Last turn, just to get it in there. But then again, we use that mana to cast Kiln Fiend, so... Okay, here we go. So, probably looking at something like... Nope, I was going to say, we might be looking at something like Cryptic Command from our opponent. Not seeing it, though, so here's actually what I'm thinking. I'm going to bolt my opponent, put these triggers on the stack. This is before we get to blocks, and I'm going to flash back this Lava Dart on the Snapcaster Mage, get our target this way, but get use of that mana to Lightning Bolt our opponent down. So what are we looking at right now? This is... a lot of damage coming in. Our opponent going to 11 as we attack for lethal, more or less, right? This is 10, and we have 2 instant speed burn spells in our hand. Depends if my opponent has answers to this here. This might be close. I like what we did there. We went to combat first, playing around a Cryptic Command, at least as best we could. Now there's a Lightning Bolt on the Kiln Fiend. Alright, so what happens if I have 10 points? Unfortunate. No, we have the spike. Alright, we're good. Alright, we'll cast this on their face. At least we're going to try anyways. Now we will bolt them. I'm going to go for lethal here. I mean, our only hope is that the deck is flooding out over there, right? All dictates, that sort of thing. Let's see if we get in for 5. This is big here. Wow, they actually held on to the Cryptic Command. Okay, interesting play. Sure thing. I mean, I suppose that's fine. Now I get to, I guess, light up the stage here. See what we find. A Mountain and another light at the stage. Well, I can't do that. So I guess I'll go ahead and just replay my Swiftspear here. Okay, well, it's an interesting game. I mean, our opponent spent their turn just trying to survive, and now we're just any Lightning Bolt effect away from ending the game. We have a light up the stage to try to help us dig for that. We also have a Swiftspear that they have to answer on attack, and we get an extra card from the Dictate. So, unfortunately, here comes Snapcaster Time Warp, and it begins from our turn's opponent. And we can most certainly not do anything here. This is where we say good luck, cross your fingers that their deck hits their failure rate, and they're not able to find enough turns. You know, I guess one of the things we do have going for us here is that, I mean, I guess we're dead to Bolt, Snap, Bolt, but that was probably always true. And there's a Temporal Mastery. Gives them one more turn. Unfortunately, I think I have to block here. I don't want to die to just Lightning Bolt. My opponent... Oh, fetching. Wow, maybe I should have just Lava Spiked him, I guess. I can't imagine that being the difference, but you never know. Well, I guess so. If they just happen to need all that mana. Well, now I certainly cannot block that Snapcaster Mage. We're going to have to block this Awoken land over there and hope that our opponent has neither Snapcaster Mage nor Lightning Bolt. This was a close game, and unfortunately that will kill us. All right, on to the sideboard here against our turn's opponent. Honestly, none of this very good. I guess we can stop the Snapcaster Mages to an extent. I think we can board out Bedlam Revelers because we're just trying to be as fast as possible here. There's not a lot of messing around against this opponent. And look, in theory, that's what our deck is designed to do, is to attack for a lot of damage very quickly. But missing our land drop in that first game was a little bit rough. And the Blood Moons actually would have been okay there, but our opponent runs so many basic islands. I think there's no way that that's actually worth doing. Meanwhile, the Bedlam Revelers are obviously very powerful for us, but also very slow. And as you see, if we're too slow there, our opponent just takes all the turns, and it doesn't matter that we reload our hand. But this hand looks quite good. We have the Swiftspear on 1, the Kiln Fiend on 2, then the Lava Dart to go for full-on combos here. We're going to attack for a lot of damage on turn 3 if our opponent doesn't have a Lightning Bolt over there. And really, even if they do, we're gonna end up doing pretty well. Engineered Explosives on 1, though. It's a little annoying. But ultimately, it's not that big of a deal, because if our opponent were to, say, go for that next turn, we get to just hit him for a billion with Kiln Fiend. Honestly, maybe kill him with the way this all looks here, say if we were to hit a land. So we're going to put our opponent to the test for sure. And we even hit the land, so there you go. Let's go ahead and spike away, see what happens here. It's possible this Kiln, if they don't have a very specific answer, and honestly, I mean, like, absurdly specific, right? There's not that much they could actually have here where they're not just dead, because we've got them down to 12. Here we are coming in for 10 with a Lightning Bolt in hand. And this is actually just a turn 3 kill we've lined up. And the crazy part is we've actually lined it up even through this Snapcaster Mage block. And this is actually the sick one here. They even have the the sweet Ambush Viper mode, and it's still not enough as we attack for 14 on turn 3 and kill them. That's how you mono red Prowess right there. Let's try to do it again in game 3. Our opponent's hand could have been great, but we had the crazy draw. So here we go. Another one-lander here, but look, this is a hand of 7 cards with 1 Lonely Mountain, and we can actually just play every card in our hand. Not only can we play every card in our hand, we can actually double spell multiple, well, okay, maybe just 1 turn with the Lava Darts right now. But this hand obviously is very good if we find a second land, which, there you go, we did. We get a Swiftspear, put a little bit of pressure on our opponent. The next turn we can probably Lava Spike plus throw down a Grafdigger's Cage if we want. So that when they untap on turn 3, they don't have Snapcaster Mage up. Unfortunately, they do have the Lightning Bolt. We have all the Lava Spikes in the world. Well, let's try to burn our opponent out. I'm sitting on 8 points, 10 points in hand, actually. So if you look at it this way, we're really only 1 Lightning Bolt away from getting there. In a couple turns, anyways. But we at least slow down the Snapcaster Mages and the Mystic Sanctuaries for what it's worth. So I think we have some good stuff working for us here. Oops, don't want a Lava Dart. Just want to play these sorceries out. Put our opponent down to 7. I mean, maybe I should save one of those, or maybe even both of them in case we draw a haste creature. But the thing is, with the Lava Darts in hand, any one of those creatures is going to represent lethal anyways, so I kind of like using up our mana as best we can there. And now we pass to our opponent, who has a Brazen Borrower in the instep. I can't say I care too much about this. I can take hits for a while, and then if I get tired of taking hits, I can just Lava Dart it. Meanwhile, we're just digging through for all kinds of stuff here. That one doesn't quite work. I guess I could Lava Dart them. Turn on this light up stage. I think this is worth it. Because we liked the idea of throwing that at them anyways. We could sacrifice a land if we really needed to. And we still have another Lava Dart in hand. So, see what our opponent does here. They draw a card with... We each draw a card with Mikakoro. Okay, well, I was going to say, this just might end here, right? Our opponent is under so much pressure. If we untap, they're dead. So this looks great for us. And they probably know it, right? They see 4 points of damage here. The problem for them, especially as they go for a Serum Visions here, they need exhaustion, I think, or they're really not going to have any way back into this one. Because if we untap, we're just going to start putting lethal spells on the stack. And this Brazen Borrower coming in is not going to slow me down. Here we go. We got to the main phase. This looks pretty good for us. Lava Spike them down to 2. Here comes a Cryptic Command, I assume. But that's great for us because that means we win. I guess I can do this, do all this now so that in case they were to draw a... Oh god, the Grafdigger's Cage. Lose our own Grafdigger's Cage. Okay, well, we can bolt our opponent next turn. Alright, they're down to 1. I guess I didn't think about that one. That it means we can't use the flashback. That seems perfectly fine, though. We have the Lightning Bolt on top of our deck. Our opponent's going to have another removal spell. That is kind of funny, though. Alright, let's bolt them, see if they have it here. We'll draw a card. We draw a Swiftspear. You know what? That works for us, too. I think we are going to be good to go here. They're going to Lightning Bolt themselves. We got there. A little hiccup with the Grafdigger's Cage, but, I mean, hey, the point is, this is the deck you want to bring it in against anyways. The fact that our Lava Darts were turned off is honestly not that big of a price to pay. We had our own Lightning Bolt for lethal, plus the Swiftspear. There you go, everybody. And an extra draw step for what it's worth from the Sunbaked. Mono Red Prowess, taking it down here on Mighty Modern. Hey, everybody, here we go with some more Mono Red Prowess. In this hand, I'd almost go so far as to say this is the hand dreams are made of, but not quite. We need a Lava Dart for that, but this hand is very good. Double Soul-Scar Mage plus the Kiln Fiend on the play as our opponent plays a tapped land. Now, they will have sweepers, most likely playing some kind of red-green Valakut deck here, but we have the ability, if they don't have a Lightning Bolt, we're going to get in there very quickly next turn, getting to 6 points at them from the bolts. That puts them down to 13. That makes the Soul-Scar Mage a 3, which puts them to 10, and it makes the Kiln Fiend a 7, puts them down to 3 in time for us to try to kill off after that. So, not quite getting there with this draw, but another mountain, not the worst either. So, we're not going to be able to do anything to kill him this turn, basically no matter what we do here. I guess this might have been a misplay. Yeah, I think this was a misplay. So, this is one of those smaller things I think that you want to keep in mind when you're playing a deck, but I just want it to be known here that I could have played this a little differently, right? I could have actually pointed, say, the Burst Lightning at the Sakura Tri-Belter, forcing my opponent to sacrifice it in response. So we lose the 2 damage from the Burst Lightning going to the face, but we gain the damage from the Kiln Fiend and the Soul-Scar Mage getting through. So I actually think that was probably a misplay on my part. It is somewhat hard to say because we are wasting sort of potential points to damage to their face by doing that. Now, this way, yeah, they took less damage on that turn, but hey, they're still in trouble on this turn, and we get to still present the same clock we were always going to. So it's not quite as cut and dry as maybe, I made it yeah, as it looks on first glance, because you have to think, yeah, we do less damage that turn, but in some ways, we're more set up to damage over the course of the game here. And our opponent is going to be put into an unenviable position here, although, do we have lethal, maybe? We'll see. Now, this does make red mana. If they have a lightning bolt, we could be in trouble, but what I could do is go for the bolt and the burst lightning on the Dryad. That puts it in the graveyard. That means we get in for 13, I think. So we're going to have to draw something here. Meanwhile, my opponent pacting immediately, huh? To get an Arboreal Grazer. Okay. Interesting play from our opponent. And probably actually a really good one, because here comes the Valakut trigger to knock out the Kiln Fiend, and that probably knocks out us, to be quite honest. Alright, well, let's get on in there, I guess. My opponent, Summoner's Pacting for a Grazer to be able to do that. It was actually a pretty heads-up play on their part. Got to give it to them. Alright, so we're going to just cast this at their face. Cast this at their face. This takes out the Grazer, gets them down to 6. It allows us to play a light up the stage here. I mean, we're just going to need our opponent. You know what? That looks okay. Our opponent does have to pay for their pact here, so there's probably not a Primeval Titan coming. Kiln Fiend is not what we wanted. We wanted to flip 2 lightning bolts there, and unfortunately, with our opponent at 6 life, neither of those are lightning bolts. Although I guess the Lava Dart plays okay here. Yeah, this looks kind of ugly though. Our opponent, and in fact, the game's just over because our opponent has. Well, I guess it's not technically over because they're at 5. I mean, I guess actually, if we draw a lightning bolt, we win. So I say it's over because we're out of creatures, but that's not true. And our opponent is probably a turn away from killing us still. We probably get to untap again. We might get 2 shots at this. We're 1 lightning bolt away from winning the game. Soul-Scar Mage, unfortunately, not what we're looking for. Alright, point the Lava Dart at our opponent. Put him down to 4. Pass the turn back. I mean, this is going to be a tight game. I think our opponent, well, a Valakut here, so double Valakut triggers. This is pretty rough. 1 goes at the Kiln Fiend, 1 goes at us, putting us to 17. We get attacked down to 13. But our opponent only has 1 other card in hand. So if it's a Summoner's Pact or a Titan, I think we're just dead. We'd be taking 12 damage. But if it's neither of those things, we get a draw step here. No whammies, no whammies, no whammies. Unfortunately for us, Escape Shift gets the job done as well. Okay, on to game 2 then. Blood Moons, please. Alpine Moon, please. Alright, what don't we want? We cut a Burst Lightning or 2. This is kind of a matchup where I do want to draw Revelers, though. We'll get rid of it. All right, we'll just kind of cut down here. Still have Bedlam Revelers we can draw into. I want all the light up stages because I want as many looks to find Alpine Moon to name Valakut or Blood Moon, obviously, as possible here. So that's the strategy I'm going into with sideboarding. We'll see if it works out. I mean, I did cut a little bit of burn, a little bit of reach from our deck, but we put in, 4 cards that are just absolutely critical in the matchup. So it would have really been nice to seal game 1 there. We had a nice start, and we were just 1 bolt away. Didn't quite make it, but moving to sideboard here now. We both have the ability to go way faster than them, although Dryad really, it's crazy how many cards the Valakut decks have gotten recently, and now there's there's all kinds of decks that it's not just Valakut. There's like blue-green Field of the Dead. I mean, just between Arboreal Grazer of all things, you know, but also right Sheltered Thicket I think was Amonkhet. You know, the Scapeshift reprint made it a little more popular in paper at least, but Castle Garenbrig to cast the Titan. It's got a lot going on. Uro in those versions, Field of the Dead to give them a backup win con. There's a lot that the deck has gotten, and then it's topped all off by Dryad of the Elysian Grove, which is just Prismatic Omen Scapeshift was a deck in itself in Modern for many years, just because of how good those two effects played together, turning all of your lands into basic types, meaning your Valakut just needs 5 lands in play to trigger, not 5 mountains. So that also means then that all of your fetch lands and everything like that, it's the deck where, you know, something like Farseek was, you know, even better than sort of in the traditional Scapeshift decks. But now they just get a free roll it with a 2/4 for 3 mana that I think also ramps up. I don't know, it's got another effect. The card's insane. I think you get to play an extra. You get to play an extra land. Even it's just a crazy card. Yeah, you get an extra land on each of your turns. It's just nuts how powerful that is. All right, I have to keep this. Obviously, I wish there was a second land here, but with Swiftspear and Light Up the Stage, if we can get a hit in on turn 2, I think we'll probably be good to go. Now, the dream, of course, just hitting land. On our turn, running out the Kiln Fiend, and then just trying to pop off. Oh, by the way, did I forget to mention Once Upon a Time for this deck? So that you just always have the the Arbor on 3, the Titan on 4, or the 0/3 Arboreal Grazer on turn 1. They just always have it. Once Upon a Time in Modern, folks. It turns out that's how Once Upon a Time in Standard worked as well, until that became a distant memory, you know. Now I look at Standard and I remember Once Upon a Time, you could play Oko and this card. That's pretty broken. It's also just kind of jarring to look at something like Elspeth, the Returned, whatever, the Theros one. That's a super, and Ashiok, which are both powerful but super fair planeswalkers. And just imagine that they were designed in a time period where they also imagined Oko being legal, right? Like, just compare Oko side by side with Elspeth. I mean, come on. Anyways, our opponent must be digging for lands over there as they take the Sheltered Thicket. That means we get to get in here with our Swiftspear, which is nice. We get a Light Up the Stage here now. Obviously, we really need to find a land. All right, look at that. We did it. We get to play out another Swiftspear. That is what I call an effective Light Up the Sage. You get a creature and your land drop for the turn off of it. Don't even have any cards to carry over to your next turn. All right, our opponent busting out the Sakura Tribe Elder. All right, decision time for us. I think I'm going to go slow here. Well, I could also do the line where I... No, I'm just going to do this. My opponent can have their block this turn. Now we have some options here, because if our opponent the issue for us is going for the Kiln Fiend, which is what I want to do. I'm going to start by lighting up the Sage, though. We did not get there. Okay. Yeah, let's light up the Sage again. All right, there we go. Hit our land. Now we can just go ahead and... let's just go ahead and crash through here. Yeah, we'll crash through. Draw our card now. All right, there we go, Blood Moon. So the reason I did that rather than just slam the Kiln Fiend is that these two Monastery Swiftspears on board are going to provide a lot of a threat on their own. Whereas if we tap out for the Kiln Fiend there, we don't hit our third land drop, and our opponent plays Anger of the Gods or something, we get 3 for 1. We lose our creatures. We have, you know, just kind of a mess of spells at that point that aren't really going anywhere. So the thing is, we get to still put pressure on by taking this line, except we also get to see more cards. And now our opponent obviously still going to be in a little bit of trouble. All right, would have not hated to hit a land there. Okay, so obviously just slamming Blood Moon Does look like a pretty good play. I think I'm probably fine to attack here, though. Because if my opponent goes for a block with the Dryad, obviously we get to kill it. I could kill it if I wanted anyways. And they are going to do that. Okay. I'm down for this. And we'll go ahead and bolt this thing. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do, I think. Since my opponent had blocks this turn and now we get to win the board, I'm going to try to get lucky and land this Blood Moon. So I'm going to go ahead and Manamorphose for, you know, no value, so to speak, here. But if we hit a land off of it, we can cast a Blood Moon. And look at that, we did it. Blood Moon down. We lose that Bedlam Reveler. That's no big deal. We have another one. Now our opponent has just the 1 green mana. Although, I believe if they have this, actually, I'm not even going to, I'll be honest, I'm not sure how these cards interact. I don't know, maybe it's a timestamp thing, but I guess we're going to find out. It looks like this does overrule it. So Blood Moon, pretty good, but not exactly perfect here. But if our opponent's not doing anything else, this might still work out pretty okay for us. I can Lava Spike here. Now let's see what my opponent does. They're going to block. You see, blocking is very good for us. I'm happy to do this here. Take this thing out of play. Put him down to 9. And now I'm happy to just play this Bedlam Reveler. We'll lose out access to a Kiln Fiend. We'll get much more. We'll play out the Alpine Moon. I'm going to name Valakut. Alright, this works out great. So now, even if they do have another Dryad of the Elysian Grove, to give their lands every type, this still shuts down the Valakut. I mean, so this is going to be kind of rough for them here. There we go. So they would have, with the Dryad out, it gives them some ability to play around the Blood Moon on the color screw. And with the second effect where they can't bounce this, get out of the way to get back their Valakuts, so that worked out pretty well for us. So let's move on to game 3. I think I like the sideboard plan that we have. We have a couple cards to interact with them while still presenting a clock. So you saw there, they actually had removal, they had ramp spells, and they had the Dryad of the Elysian Grove, which is a 2/4, which is actually a fairly relevant blocker, but they made the blocks and they worked out for us because that's what this deck does. If they don't block, they just, some amount of the time you just die. That's what happens when you play against mono red Prowess is, oh, okay, I don't block, how bad could it be? And they hit you with 4 instants and you just take 1 billion damage from the Prowess creatures. So our opponent mulliganing here, and we have what I think is a pretty good hand. 1 drop into Manamorphose, Light Up the Sage Blood Moon. So as long as our opponent, isn't going incredibly fast, although, Search for Tomorrow on turn 1 is pretty good for them. Alright, so we'll see if we get our hit in with the Soul-Scar Mage. It would be very, very big if we did, quite frankly. But a Kiln Fiend, huh? I changed my mind. I'm running the Kiln Fiend out. I'm going to make them have it. Yeah, this is a little bit different situation than last game because in the last game we already had 2 creatures out when we had the Kiln Fiend as our opponent cycles away a Sheltered Thicket, but also we were on the play, so we kind of had that window with our opponent having the turn 1 Search for Tomorrow that they get to cast now and being on the play. I feel like we kind of have to go for this, right? Because, I mean, for all we know, it could be as bad as a Titan or something this turn, right? I don't think that's the case. They would have needed another ramp spell, but they can still play some really good creatures. So we put this out here. If they have a Dryad of the Elysian Grove, they're going to be forced to block it. But wow, just cycling Sheltered Thicket tells me that they know their back is up against the wall. They're digging for Lightning Bolt, and if they don't find it, they know they're in trouble. So that is certainly going to be the case because this Kiln Fiend is probably just going to deal 15 damage or something. 16, I guess. We're going to have 3 mana to work with, a Manamorphose, a Lava Dart, a Light Up the Stage. Yeah, our opponent needs exactly Lightning Bolt, right? Or equivalent spell, because even, a blocker like a Sakura Tri-Builder, we get to just tear right through. So my opponent digging by cycling the Shelter Thickets tells me that they know that they're just going to die to this Kiln Fiend. And hey, this is what Mono Red Prowess does. It makes people have it. And if they have it, good for them. But, sometimes they just don't. Sometimes they don't have it. And you get to do something like this. So the thing is, if our opponent does have the Bolt, it's honestly not the end of the world for us. We get to keep going. We're still going to deal him a bunch of damage with the Soul-Scar Mage. We're ultimately not really going to be out anything. So it works out just fine for us. By the way, I said earlier we can't cast Leyline of the Voids. With Manamorphose, we actually can. Alright, so we'll start by lightning bolting our opponent here. I'll use this last one on the Burst Lightning. Alright, this should be enough. That's 10, 11. I guess our opponent's at 13. 14. Yeah, so this is enough here. So this is where we find out if our opponent has that Bolt. And the thing is, even if they do have the Lightning Bolt, we'll get through with the Soul-Scar Mage. We won't win the game. We'll get through with the Soul-Scar Mage, do a reasonable amount of damage. We'll get to play light at the stage, and then hopefully untap into a Blood Moon, and hope at that point we can just, kind of draw enough burn to get him out. But in the meantime, our opponent's at 13, and we're swinging for 14, and none of that's even going to matter if this isn't an immediate removal spell on their part. It's not. Mono Red Prowess takes down the game. Too fast for Valakut. All right, let's see if we can pull off the 3-0 with Mono Red Prowess here. I don't think I can mulligan this hand. It is a 4-lander, which is pretty far outside of what you want in the Mono Red Prowess deck. But that said, we're on the draw, so we're going to see plenty of cards this game. Our opponent playing Amulet. And with the two Fiery Islets, it actually works out pretty well. Now, this is something you probably don't see much, but I think it's correct. I'm not going to play my creature on turn 1. I'm just going to kill this Sakura Tribe Scout immediately, because otherwise it gets pretty ugly, especially our opponent mulliganed. Let's slow him down as much as we possibly can here. Now, flooding out, I gotta say, I didn't anticipate that with the 4-lander, and not a lot of lands in the Mono Red Prowess deck here, but our opponent has 3 mana now. Let's see what they can do. It's possible I'm supposed to just let him go and say, okay, well, they're going to be gated by cards in this game, not by tempo, but oof. There is the Dryad of the Elysian Grove, so... Oh no, and a Bajuka Bog? How annoying. I mean, I have to let it go. I need my lands. Wow, okay. I think I just have to do this. It doesn't feel good at all. I'll tell you that. But I think it's what we have to do. Alright, let's attack here. See if we bluff the gut shot successfully. The good news is we can start cracking... Wow, it actually worked. We can start cracking some of these lands next turn. Our opponent, though, probably in a pretty good spot if they valued keeping the Dryad of the Elysian Grove around that much. Because that was... I mean, that was a pretty free block for them. That tells me they're probably going to be ready to do some pretty silly stuff here, but... here we go. They have access to 4 mana right now. And they're going to cycle a Talaria West. Okay. I assume that's actually good for me. Not only are they doing, almost essentially nothing for their turn by searching for a land, but that is really not progressing the board state here. I guess they can get a bounce land, play it, replay the Bajuka Bog, and the next turn they're looking at 6 mana for a Titan. So, yeah, that's pretty good. We're going to have to find some way around that. I don't know that we're going to have that opportunity. Maybe if we'd been on the play, we'd be out a little faster with this stuff, but this hand's going to struggle a little bit. Not having a burn spell in hand. Oh, they got a Pact of Negation. Okay, because they had a bounce land. As a not having a burn spell of any kind in hand to make that attack into the Dryad of the Elysian Grove a safe attack, and then I could spectacle it afterwards. That was kind of rough, I'm not going to lie. As is obviously finding another land off the top there. And there's a spike. Spike away here. All right, get in there for 3. If they want to block this time around. I cannot really fathom a world in which we win at this point, but hey, you're basically going to win no games when you draw 4 out of 5 lands or whatever we're on here. So, on the one hand, it sucks that my opponent mulliganed, I think, to 5, and now we're steadily falling behind. On the other hand, you know, we had a borderline keep, but we were just never going to get there anyway. So, now my opponent busting out the Summoner's Pact for the Primeval Titan here, which, thanks to these bounce lands making 2 mana each, they're able to play. Let's see what it gets. Without an amulet, I don't think it's just straight combo city. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll loop together 12 damage here somehow. Probably not. If it's Field of the Dead, though, we might actually have time to try to draw some burn spells. I don't know. I have to say, it probably looks fairly hopeless here. And obviously, at this point, my opponent can probably pretty safely block with the Dryad of the Elysian Grove. It did make sense on their part to keep it around. They valued it very highly, but when you're playing bounce lands to pick up a land, you know, it's a crazy ramp spell at that point. Well, they're deep in the tank here with this Primeval Titan. So, might be a little more complicated than pulling out Field of the Dead and something else. Also, by the way, remember my opponent got Pact of Negation, so I have to say we're probably just dead. I guess we'll wait and see what our draw step looks like before we scoop, but this was a pretty powerful draw from our opponent here. All right, it's a Radiant Fountain and a Valakut, huh? All right, that's good enough for me. We're not going to win that one. Blood Moon would like your services again, please. I will give this a shot. Well, my opponent actually said, "My hand was really weird. Sorry for taking so long." Not a problem, friend. That was a fairly quick match. I have to think it through. I understand that Amulet is one of the more complicated decks. It's actually, you know, when Amulet was kind of breaking out before it really, you know, got to a Pro Tour and dominated, I was considering it for Mining Modern. It's probably the only deck. The only deck that I really heavily considered that I ended up not playing simply because it was too complicated. Look, I know. Look, I named my series my Pioneer series. You can catch on alternating weeks with Mining Modern here on Cool Stuff. I named it Punting Pioneer for a reason. Okay, we're here to have fun with some funny decks. We are not here to play everything perfectly all the time. And when you're playing a deck as complicated as Amulet Titan, that actually seemed kind of scary. It almost feels like a deck you don't want to play if you can only play it, you know, 75% of the way, because it does have some pretty complicated lines. Now, it might not be that way now. You know, these days it might be a little more straightforward with Dryad of the Elysian Grove. Honestly, probably making things much easier for you. But hey, who knows? Who knows? All right, so got to say that Engineer Explosives on 1 is going to be pretty good against us. Gosh, I just don't even want to play the Swiftspear. And I don't think I can. I think I have to do this. Ooh. Okay, Kiln Fiend, I see you. Well, I'm hoping my opponent will blow the EE here. Obviously, Kiln Fiend, before we cast the Crash Through, would have been ideal. Land? Alright, not a land. This might work out, though. My opponent either pops it here, which is no big deal for us, or then said they take it, and then we get a Spectacle to slide up the stage. Which, unfortunately, I was very much hoping to hit a land on. We did not, so that makes things a lot worse. Now my opponent is going to blow the Engineer Explosives. I guess this is fine for us. We get to untap, hopefully play the Kiln Fiend. There's an Amulet, though, so things could start to get pretty ugly. They have 3 mana now. And the Dryad. So here comes just the Radiant Fountain. Okay. Well, This is pretty good for my opponent, not going to lie. It is land time for this Blood Moon right now. That is what we're going to need. And that is not what we got. So, alright, Kiln Fiend it is. Lava Dart, that was not the world's best light at the stage. We went digging for land, and we came up wanting. So, I mean, we do have a Swiftspear. We want it next turn. Our opponent might just essentially kill us here, though. The Amulet untaps the Gruul Turf. They get to pick up the Radiant Fountain, which, thanks to Triad of the Elysian Grove, can actually add any color of mana they want. So they're going to make the 2 mana with the Gruul Turf untapping. Now the trigger's still on the stack. They can actually pick up the Gruul Turf itself if they want. Instead, they just pick up the Radiant Fountain and replay it back up to 20. And now they have access to 7 mana. And there's the Primeval Titan. I think that's probably going to do it. Needed to find the land for the Blood Moon a turn earlier. I don't think even playing a Blood Moon now is going to be good enough. My opponent can get... I guess they're going to get Valakuts. With Dryad of the Elysian Groves in play, though, that's probably good enough. I don't see a way... We weren't going to get there anyways. I don't see a way in which we beat a Primeval Titan. Alright, there you go. Fair enough. Let's jump right on into another. Alright, we're trying to pick up one more win here with our mono red Prowess deck if we can. And I think I like this hand. We have the Soul-Scar Mage plus the Swiftspear, lots of 1-mana spells, and now especially drawing that Bedlam Reveler there. If our opponent's playing fair at all, which looks like they might be, you know, Verdant Catacombs fetching out a Blood Crypt, you know, that screams Jund to me, which is the matchup where Bedlam Reveler is at its absolute best. So we'll see what happens here. Looks like our opponent just going to pass back. Works out just fine for us. We get to slam a Swiftspear. And then I guess probably just a Crash Through. You know, on the one hand, you kind of want to save the Crash Through for turns where you think you're going to need the trample. On the other hand, I would just like to have access to my 3rd mana on turn 3, if I can make that possible, so that I have the full amount of options at my disposal there. Plus, this gets in the damage here without sacrificing, I guess, sort of interaction in the form of removing their creatures this way. So this kind of forces our opponent into something like an Abrupt Decay, which is fine for them. It removes one of our threats. We still get a poke in for 2, draw another card, and at that point, we're just kind of trying to keep the game going to the point where we can cast this Bedlam Reveler and refill. So they're a little bit in the tank here. I mean, it's pretty rough for them if their answer is something like Assassin's Trophy, right, instead of Abrupt Decay, because Assassin's Trophy, we get to just go get a land. It's actually pretty terrible for them to do that. It just sets us up for the long game. Even though they would remove one of our creatures, we can make use of that land for sure. Meanwhile, though, they are actually, I guess, just in the tank on this. I mean, that's basically all I can imagine them having. Of course, saying maybe they're just getting a drink, right? That's how it goes. So this is a Urza's, what is that? Urza's Gears? Urza's Saga, I believe is what this is. That is an odd-looking forest. I'll say that. Everything else makes sense, right? It's a mountain. I mean, I guess that's what an islet is. I can imagine what a crypt full of blood would look like, but I guess something like that. But this kind of looks like a green, like, dragon monster thing in the forest. It's kind of what I'm seeing. It's kind of like a, you know, look at this cloud. Tell me what you see. It's what I'm seeing in this forest here. I don't know. If my opponent comes back, I'll continue this game. All right, our opponent has returned. Our Crash Through is resolving. We did not hit the land. Light up the stage, not bad, though. We'll get in for 4. At least we'll try to. It looks like they are going to pull the trigger just on a Fatal Push. I guess as far as answers go, that was fine for them. You know, it's not mana efficient, but probably reasonable. Certainly they don't want to Assassin's Trophy, and there's a Tarmogoyf, so this actually is not going to work out as well as my opponent probably would want it to, because I am happy to just double bolt this Tarmogoyf, get it out of the way, for a lot of reasons. I mean, one, we get in for 3 damage this way, which is big, but also because we hit up our land, we get to play a Light at the stage, which sets us up for next turn. We have filled our graveyard now. Bedlam Reveler, I think, costs 3 mana. There's 4. There's 4 in our graveyard. So by the time we're done here, this will be a 2 or 3 mana play to refill our hand. Now, our opponent does have a lot of resources in hand, but they missed their third land drop. And just playing the Tarmogoyf, while obviously making us use 2 spells on it was good for them, we basically get it right back by playing light at the stage. And the fact that we're going to reload with Bedlam Reveler here means it's not so bad at all. So the worst play for us, I guess, is probably my opponent playing a Liliana into a Liliana, because I can kill this Liliana with the Lava Spike after they've minused on my creature. And there it is. Yep. It's a second Liliana that would be a problem for us. Maybe. It may not even be. Alright, we'll Lava Spike out the Liliana. Well, let's actually count here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this costs 3. I could Lightning Bolt make it. So I could actually do that. I lose access that way to the Soul-Scar Mage. What I actually like doing here, I think, is playing Soul-Scar Mage, passing the turn. If our opponent does have a second Liliana that they would go upstairs with, then we can discard the Lightning Bolt and still Reveler. If they're just going to Inquisition us, I'll just bolt them. Yeah, this worked out much better for us. I mean, we're not getting a ton of value out of the Soul-Scar Mage. And now I guess if our opponent were to go to land plus uptick Liliana, that would be bad for us. But we're whiffing their Inquisition of Kozilek here. We get them down to 10. Even if they have answered our Soul-Scar Mage here, they're going to see that we are ready to reload with the Bedlam Reveler. They're under a lot of pressure because they need... Okay, Lightning Bolt away our Soul-Scar Mage. This is exactly how we drew it up, to be quite honest. You trade resources for a long time, and then you just play a 2-mana Bedlam Reveler to draw 3. And we get to immediately get in there with the Monastery Swiftspear. So our opponent's in quite a bit of trouble right now. I think even though in a lot of ways that was a pretty bad Reveler for us, we drew a Swiftspear and 2 lands off of it, but we have 2 creatures in play they have to deal with. They're still stunted on mana. We had to crack this Fiery Islet in their instep here. And then we even have another one in hand to crack after that. So it looks like we might need it all too. Alright, sack this one. There we go, perfect. Hit the Lava Spike. Lava Spike our opponent down to 6 and attack for lethal, which forces the Assassin's Trophy play. We'll get to use the ability here, which is kind of relevant. In fact, it is, because now I can cast this with Spectacle beforehand since we dealt them damage, and we could hit the cards off of this to win the game. Now, we didn't. We instead hit 2 more lands, so somehow we're actually just crazy flooded here. But at the same time, look how many spells we've seen out of our deck. It is quite a few, and we get 2 more shots with our opponent at 3. We get to play this Sunbaked Canyon and cycle it next turn. And by the way, we still have a creature in play. So my opponent, under still just infinite pressure over there, you can see how Bedlam Reveler was 100% the difference maker in the matchup. So they basically need, a removal spell. Like, I guess the best play for them here is a push plus a Tarmogoyf. Liliana, not particularly good. It's fine. It keeps them alive, but it doesn't really it doesn't progress them towards winning the game. They need to, let's see, this is a good start. Yeah, Kolaghan's Command, kill our creature. Open to us, by the way, having anything in hand, which we don't. But that play was what they needed. Unfortunately for them, we found the Lightning Bolt off the top. Send things to game 3. Oh, game 2. Right, this was game 1. We won game 1. Okay. On to sideboarding here. Honestly, I guess Blood Moon's probably what we want. The crash throughs seem not particularly relevant at all. The question is if we want Leyline of the Voids against John. We saw Kolaghan's Command. There's probably Scoozes. There's Tarmogoyf, of course, but I don't think Leyline of the Void is worth it. I don't know. It's actually, I'm going to be honest, hard to say because, you know, in a lot of ways, it's not worth it here. For the meme. We'll do it for the meme. I was saying, in a lot of ways, it's not worth it. But hey, if you get lucky and just have it in your opening hand, and you get to answer, you know, a Tarmogoyf with it over the course of the game, just the one's worth it. You've got your value right there. So if we put exactly one in our deck, no harm can come to us. I think I have to keep this hand. I'm certainly not excited about it, but we can cycle the Crash through early. We're on the draw. Obviously, we're digging for a creature here, but we also have the Blood Moon, so we've got a lot of different ways this could go well. There's the land, so we're at least on track for Blood Moon. Obviously, Thoughtseize Inquisition makes that something that might not occur, but we'll see. But hey, we have the Manamorphose to cast that Leyline, which, by the way, would not be very good right now. But hey, whatever. I'm going to go ahead and fire off one Spike here because I can. Maybe it's a mistake to even play the one Lava Spike, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. All right, well, here we go, though. It's turn 3. Our opponent needs a discard spell now, or they're going to get Blood Mooned down to just mountains. I mean, they actually don't have a basic here either, so fingers crossed, but this could be the Dream Blood Moon. Now, of course, our opponent could also slam Liliana. That's probably the worst for us, but it wouldn't even be that bad. And this was actually insanely good for us, because that is a Scavenging Ooze. We can just kill immediately. Untap into the Blood Moon. Now, this was insane for us. This was by far the best 2-drop for, you know, on our part for them to have. And now we've cut them off of Liliana mana. We've cut them off of green mana, Tarmogoyf mana. Unfortunately, they seem to have... maybe we're getting a little slow rolled. They did have the swamp. Good for them. But we have a couple 1-drops now. We have found the pressure. And my opponent, with just mountains and swamps, by the way, I mean, they can Kolaghan's Command, they can Lightning Bolt, you know, they can Fatal Push. They still have access to a lot of their removal spells, but... Okay. Let's say it slows them down, though. Unfortunately, they did have 2 bolts there, so... I mean, hopefully we're cutting them... Getting them off of green mana keeps a lot of the win conditions out of play, so that it's certainly a very good start. That said, we're not doing anything. Not having a creature is pretty detrimental to our deck, and while we are counting up some damage over here, I mean, we're up to 8. That's half their life total. Liliana at this point is pretty good against us. Bloodstained Mire, giving them another mountain, though, probably not what they're looking for. So that's a good... I guess that's a good turn for us. Okay, we're up to 10 points. I don't want to just play the Manamorphose yet. I mean... And they're just doing nothing, huh? So, alright, this... Ooh. Okay. This Blood Moon's doing its job, have to say. Alright, we'll Manamorphose here. Alright, there's a land. We'll Spike and Spike again, I guess. That Bedlam Reveler obviously was a very good draw for us. Now, our opponent might see it coming after we go ahead and do that. But they might not. And there you go. So, alright, now I'm just going to Burst Lightning them twice. Because we're in their instep. We seem to have gotten them on the colors. The Blood Moon plan certainly looks like it worked out. We'll put him down to 6. Now we'll untap into... Well, I guess we'll Manamorphose first here. Hey, look at that. It worked. We got a Lava Dart. Alright, play the Bedlam Reveler. Hit some more stuff. So I have not lethal right now because we have 4 with that Lava Dart in the graveyard. But for all intents and purposes here, our opponent's basically dead. We got the Lightning Bolt in hand. There you go. Taking down John with Mono Red Prowess. I'll tell you what, let's finish out the league. See if we can get the 4-1 here. Alright, everybody, here we go. Trying to get the 4-1 on the league here on Mining Modern. And this hand, wish we were on the play, but seems pretty reasonable, right? It's a bunch of 1-drops. Gonna follow it up with some more even here. Would absolutely kill for a second land off the top of the deck, but this is a lot of pressure we're gonna put on our opponent. Now, we'll see what they're up to here, sacrificing the Verdant Catacombs. If it's an unfair deck, we might not have enough pressure soon. If it's a fair deck, though, could work out pretty well for us, and I think Verdant Catacombs fetching up Blood Crypt, probably a good sign. Jund 2.0 over here. Jund again is a bolt. Bolt that I absolutely do not care about. Land? Alright, not quite. Okay, well, we have plenty of gas. Now, here's the thing, though. With the second land, I'd say slam dunk, we're so far ahead, but on the draw here, this could be pretty bad for us. I mean, I guess maybe actually the best case scenario is our opponent having like a Liliana here that we can then Monastery Swiftspear to death. Looks like that's what's going to happen. This was honestly the best case scenario for us. Now, if we had a second land, we're actually just in business. Unfortunately, we did not. But we had to take down the Liliana. That essentially, basically, you know, we traded their 3 mana for our 1 mana there. And that was their entire turn. And when they're this far ahead of us, because we're missing lands, that's great. Now, our opponent finding a Kroxa, huh? I guess that's not very good for us. I can pitch a Manamorphose, I think. So we hit the second land, we're good to go. So we don't need to exactly dig for a third. Second land makes this hand great. And that is actually the most problematic, is our opponent coming up with a Tarmogoyf. Land? Okay. That's something. And as a matter of fact, that allows me to attack. Because if my opponent makes this block, which, hey, this block makes sense from their perspective. I don't know why they really wouldn't make the block, but it works for us because I'm happy to 2-for-1 myself on that Tarmogoyf, because think of how far behind we were. Of course, now for us, our opponent, if they had a fetch land, they could just play Kroxa. This is actually Kroxa Jund here. This is the worst of all worlds for us. This is a hard matchup for sure. But I think given the way this game's played out, we're in as good of a position as we could reasonably be. Yeah, okay. Crash through. See if we hit a land here. Oh no. Well, that was the game right there. That was unfortunate. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I guess I'm allergic to my opponent having the nuts. That was an extremely clutch lightning bolt there, because if we had got that attack in, it was actually going to be fairly sizable and put him down to like 9 or something by the time it was all said and done, to the point where we might reasonably be able to burn them out. Now, I don't think that's going to be the case here. I don't think we really have any outs, actually. We'll get them down to 7, which certainly does look good, but now they can escape the Kroxa, who didn't discard a non... I like the way this is worded. I did an EDH and Chill episode with Pleasant Kenobi, Caleb Durward, and Saffron Olive, my Brew Crew teammates, on Kenobi's channel if you want to check it out. But I played Kroxa, the Titan of Death's Hunger here, and notice the way it's worded. Each opponent discards a card, then each opponent who didn't discard a non-land card this way loses 3 life. So the only way to not lose the life is to discard a non-land card. We can't do that if we have no cards in hand, obviously, and that means that we'll actually take the 3 damage here. So it's one of these few effects that actually kind of works even when your opponent has nothing to discard. And we're dead to, I guess, a lightning bolt off the top on their part. You know, I guess a Prowess creature was the only way we could win. We have to draw, like, running Manamorphoses here. We need our opponent to attack for 10, then have nothing. Unfortunately, they have something, and that's the game. So, on to the sideboard. Do I do it this time against Kroxa? I'll tell you, I'll play 2 of them. Alright, let's give this a shot. What do we want to cut here? I think the Lava Darts are pretty bad. So are the Crash Throughs, though. I'd rather have All right, let's give this a shot. I'm not going to go so far as to bring in the Grafdigger's Cage against the Croxes, but hey, I'll try to free roll a couple Leylines here. I'm feeling brave. Look, you get one in your opening hand, you just shut down all the Croxes shenanigans, you shut down the Tarmogoyfs. It's literally a 1-for-1 if it's in your opening hand, and we can't exactly get flooded on him for only playing 2. So look, if you look at it from the right perspective, it's all upside. Just never draw one after your opening hand, and it's an all upside sideboard plan. Unfortunately for us, it's one that didn't quite work out. That said, is this hand even good? I'm gonna be honest, I don't think this hand's that good. It only, well, it moderately fills our graveyard, but it just doesn't do anything. Okay, I'm in. Keep. Alright, put a card on the bottom. I guess we'll put this Manamorphose on the bottom. Maybe the Burst Lightning, though. It probably just has to be the Manamorphose, unfortunately. But on the plus side of things, we get to free roll this Leyline. Alright, so like I said, it's not that it's good per se. I don't think I would particularly advocate porting in all your Leylines against Jund, but hey, your Tarmogoyfs are no good now. I mean, they'll be as big. We'll give them instants, I guess. Unfortunately for us, that was fairly killer, and that was what I was worried about here. So our opponent just having the 1-mana removal spell for our Soul-Scar Mage. Meaning we can't turn on Light Up the Stage. We can't really do anything, and opponent having the basic force, not great force either. So good news is at least that I can bolt this Tarmogoyf. So I had to be careful there because it was a 0-2 because there was a creature. This actually makes it a 3 toughness because it's 1 plus the amount, and the way it works is state-based effects come into play. So the Tarmogoyf is a 1-2, right? It saw a creature and nothing else. So it was star +1. It was a 1-2. You lightning bolt it. It has 3 damage on it. The last part of lightning bolt resolving as a spell is that it goes to the graveyard. And the way state-based actions work, state-based effects, is that creatures that get hit with a burn spell, they don't actually die from the burn spell, so to speak. They die from having lethal damage. But lethal damage isn't checked until the spell has completely finished resolving, which means going to the graveyard. So had I just Burst Lightninged it there, we would end up with a 1-2 Tarmogoyf that gets Burst Lightning, okay? 2 damage goes on it. The Burst Lightning then hits the graveyard, and then at the time it checks the damage, that Tarmogoyf is a 2-3 and wouldn't actually be dead to the Burst Lightning, so we had to bolt it there instead. So just something to keep in mind. Yeah, I think most people who play Modern are sort of familiar with the Goyf math at this point, but hey, it's the way somebody, I might have read this in an old Rosewater article or something. Always assume that somebody somewhere out there, no matter how many times you said something or written something, somebody somewhere is hearing it for the first time ever. So if you didn't know how Tarmogoyf math works, now you do. Meanwhile, we do hit our second land, so the Kiln Fiend here, this could work out okay. Unfortunately, our opponent fetching with the Wooded Foothills here. We're very dead to Liliana. And unfortunately, looks like that's what... Oh, just a Scavenging Ooze. Okay. Oh, that completely changes things. Now, obviously, my opponent can still have Lightning Bolt or Fatal Push here. They did shock themselves to keep that open, but at least we get a threat here. And Manamorphose, honestly, not a terrible draw. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I just want to Burst Lightning this Scavenging Ooze. Okay, so our Kiln Fiend gets pumped. Now we go to attack. We find out if they have removal. But if they do, it's not such a big deal. I say not a big deal. It's not good for us if they do, obviously, but we get to kind of continue playing the game. We're not really a ton worse off. We do have our second land. So there you go. Our opponent down to 2 cards. After their draw step, 3 cards in hand. And remember, any Tarmogoyfs are dead. Inquisition, unfortunately, not dead. That'll hit our Light Up the Stage. Would have been... We were obviously just set up for all kinds of success if we'd gotten in there with that Kiln Fiend. Deal 4 to them. Okay, Nihil Spellbomb for my opponent. Pretty good, actually. Now 1 red mana. I think they want to add black and go ahead and pop this. Heads up play on their part. Boarding it in, the card cycles, so it's not that bad, kind of even at its worst. And it means that they are able to exile our graveyard, cycle the card, and not keep our Bedlam Revelers from coming out. Unfortunately for them, they added that mana, but this doesn't happen when you sacrifice it. It happens when it's put into a graveyard. And with the Leyline out, it was not put into a graveyard. So Leyline already getting a card back. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and Manamorphose here. Start refilling our graveyard for what it's worth. Unfortunately, hitting a mountain there, not what we were looking for. Oof. Okay, well that one might have done us in. We needed to, I don't know. I don't know that we needed to hit something incredible, but we needed to hit something that wasn't a land. Now the Blood Moons, by the way, don't do anything. Our opponent's last card is Bloodbraids, so kind of the dream. Hitting the Kroxa here, not the end of the world for us. It's gonna escape and it's gonna right to the exile zone. We're gonna lose life. I mean, we are getting beat down by this, but it is a race we can win if we draw well. Bedlam Reveler. And look at our opponent's Nihil Spellbomb coming in clutch, because this Bedlam Reveler would completely take over the game otherwise. And even making us discard that land out of that Kroxa, looking pretty okay right now as we sit on a Bedlam Reveler that we have 4 of the 8 mana for. We are a long way away. Alright, Light Up the Stage a good start, though, especially if we find some lands off of it. And we did, okay. Okay, well that was big. So now we're getting somewhere. We have 3 spells in the graveyard for our Bedlam Reveler, along with our 7 lands. So a land allows us to cast a Bedlam Reveler. A Manamorphose allows us to cast a Bedlam Reveler. We got a shot here if our opponent keeps whiffing. Lava Spike, unfortunately, probably one of our worst draws. Just because actually, it's really got to be about the worst when even other than the other Leyline of the Void, by the way. That'll probably be our last draw. This looks like a Liliana. We're about to be in trouble. We had a shot there. We hit, that's so close. Unfortunately, Liliana uptick. That'll probably end it. I mean, I guess technically we can hit a burn spell here, kill this. That's just what we did. Oops. Wow, that Nihil Spellbomb was so clutch for them. We would have just slammed that Bedlam Reveler, drawn into this Burst Lightning, just been in complete control of the game. Instead, we are very much not in control of the game. So we can, I guess we're not dead. We get rid of the attacker. If our opponent has nothing but land in hand and say we draw a creature, we can get in there at this Liliana before it ultimates us. Obviously, finding the mountains now, pretty rough. Won't lie, pretty rough. Maybe we beat a Liliana ultimate. Nope, another Bloodbraid to us in. And the Lightning Bolt, that'll be the game. All right, unfortunately, we weren't able to get there. Kroxa Jund did take us down, but you know what? 3-2 with this deck. It's one of the better decks in Modern, I think, right now, especially if you like to attack a lot. Mono Red Prowess, everybody. Thank you for watching. This is Mighty Modern. I'll see you next week with Punting Pioneer here on Cool Stuff Inc.